Zipper rolls out to the right, pitches off to Taylor, and Taylor's to the 20, down to the 15, down to the 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Billy Taylor scored a touchdown from 21 yards out. The crowd goes berserk. It was November 22nd, 1969. That they came to Barry, Michigan, all dressed in maize and blue. The words were said, the prayers were read, and everybody cried. But when they closed the coffin, there was someone else inside. Oh, they came to Barry, Michigan, but Michigan wasn't dead. And when the game was over, it was someone else instead. 11 Michigan Wolverines put on the gloves of gray, and as the organ played the victors, they laid Woody Hayes away. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue, and welcome to this week's Michigan Game Day Show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. On this week's program, we recap the Indiana win, discuss the mounting injury situation, and look ahead to this Saturday's game in Happy Valley. With us in just a few minutes will be Chris Balas from thewolverine.com. First, a few of my thoughts to get us rolling. Saturday's win over Indiana was far from pretty, but it was a good bounce-back performance after that gut-wrenching loss in East Lansing the week before. Hassan Haskins had his best day of the season in what was overall a sluggish performance from the offense that once again struggled in the red zone. The defense fixed the substitution issues from the week before and for the most part teed off on that true freshman quarterback for IU. They looked impressive. As we get ready for Penn State, the rash of injuries in the last 2 weeks is concerning. We aren't sure who will be backing up Hassan Haskins, or if Eric All and Andrel Anthony will be ready to go. We're not even sure at this point how healthy Cade McNamara is. We probably won't have any answers to those questions until Saturday when the team takes the field. That's just the way it is. It's not as if Penn State has been injury-free this year either. They've lost several really good running backs. Sean Clifford has been dinged up a couple of times, and the defense lost outstanding P.J. Mustipher for the season, and now linebacker Jesse Luketa is a game-time decision. When you get to this point of the season, you hope you're reasonably healthy, but that's not the way it works in this sport. We have to get our guys ready and get after what is a really good Penn State team this Saturday and get another big road win. My guest today expects this to be a physical, hard-fought contest between two very evenly matched teams with huge implications in the Big Ten East race. Up next is Chris Balas from thewolverine.com, so stay with us. Here with us on our game day segment as we take a quick look back at Indiana and forward to Saturday's big one in Happy Valley is Chris Balas from thewolverine.com. Great to have you with us, Chris.
Mike, thanks for having me, buddy.
Well, Chris, Saturday's win over Indiana was maybe not eye-popping, but it was a W coming off that big loss to Michigan State. Watching that game, both teams spent a lot of time in the injury tent. We lost Blake Corum, Andrel Anthony, A.J. Henning, Jamon Green. We don't have any information on any of those injuries, including Cade McNamara's status, do we?
Yeah, I think most of those guys will play, and Jim Harbaugh said that most of the guys listed are probable. I think Jamon Green is the biggest question mark. Blake Corum, it's not serious, but it's a lower body injury, and the way he cuts and has to use that leg the way he cuts is going to be tough for him. So it's going to be a pain tolerance thing, and it's the kind of back that he is. And so I think Donovan Edwards could have played last week, and Eric All as well. They held them out for precautionary reasons. There was no way that Indiana was going to beat Michigan with that freshman playing quarterback, and I think they kind of felt that way. So you play on the side of err on the side of caution and get your guys healthy and back and ready for this Penn State game that I think everybody knows is a crossroads game for Michigan. You win this one, you probably have an opportunity to go into that last game with Ohio State, controlling your destiny and playing for a Big Ten title game berth, the first one for the program. Hard to believe, but true. We also believe that Anvil Anthony will be back. Sounds like he had a minor concussion, went through the protocol, and he should be okay. So they'll be relatively healthy for that one, Mike.
Well, that's good news. We need as many of those guys, if not all of them, back for Penn State. You know, when you look back again on that IU game, again, Chris, the offense rang up over 400 yards total offense. And a lack of red zone touchdowns still a worry, isn't it?
Yeah, and they improved a little. They had 3 in a row, I think, at one point, or they had 3 where they 3 out of 6, which is better. It's not good enough, you know. But if you look around the Big Ten, Ohio State struggled at Nebraska with the same thing, and clearly they're a better offensive football team. So it's hard to score down there, as Harbaugh said. But the one thing that you look at it closely and you question the sequencing sometimes and what they're trying to accomplish. You see them pulling out some of the trickery, maybe some end arounds or some play action, whereas, you know, it's like stick with your bread and butter and just sequence it a little bit better is my opinion on it. So, but they've got analysts that get paid big bucks to figure that stuff out, and it's going to need to be better against Penn State, and it's going to need to be better at Ohio State. Field goals don't win the big games, and there are going to be times when you need more points and shootouts. We saw it against Michigan State, where, you know, one more red zone touchdown, and they probably win that football game. So that is going to be a point of emphasis, along with short yardage. I think that they still need to get better there. There are times when one guy misses his assignment and it blows up the entire play. We've seen tons of third and ones where they've been stoned, or 3rd and 2s, and just can't happen. So this will be a big test on Saturday, although Penn State's rush defense has not been great. We saw Illinois run for, I think, 347 yards on them in that crazy 9 overtime game. So Michigan will have an opportunity, in my opinion, to do some things on the ground, and that's what they're going to have to do to win that game up there in Happy Valley.
I've seen plenty of teams run on Penn State. I think one of the interesting statistics when you look at that Penn State defense is they've only allowed 10 scoring touchdowns this year, 12 field goals in the red zone, so they have been very tough when you get down there in the red zone.
Yeah, and they've got a great secondary. So it's not like you can say, okay, we'll take our shots and, you know, get one over the top here and not have to deal with the red zone. They're just going to have to figure it out. I don't think Penn State's going to put up a ton of points, so this could be a lower scoring game. But if you get a couple of those touchdowns and put some pressure on them, Sean Clifford, Penn State's quarterback, hasn't been running as much since he took a shot to the ribs, I think, against Iowa. He's really been banged up, but he can still throw the ball, and they've got some great receivers. Jahan Dotson, clearly probably the best, one of the best receivers in the Big Ten, next to the Ohio State guys. So that's going to be the big concern there. So, but yeah, you got to put points up and not give up those big plays over your head. We cited that as one of the keys to the Michigan State game, and that's exactly what happened. They had too many of those. That's why they lost that game, despite outplaying Michigan State for I wouldn't say the vast majority, but a good portion of that game. They gave up way too many big plays, weren't set on a couple of running plays, and that did them in. It can't happen on Saturday.
Getting back to the injuries again that we've been hearing about, Chris, Cade McNamara was 10 out of 18. He was sacked twice on Saturday night, and you heard them say a few times he was in and out of the injury tent. But, you know, when you watch him play during the course of the game, awfully hard to tell there's anything wrong with him, isn't there?
He's a tough guy, and that's what you need at that position. And we've heard over the years of guys that played with this or that. Chad Henne played with a separated shoulder. They pop it back in and give him a shot and put him back out there. And Jim Harbaugh loves those kinds of guys, and that's one of the reasons that Cade McNamara is so respected by his teammates, because he doesn't make any excuses. He wants to be out there in the past, and I wrote this today, and I hate to say it, but some of the stars on this team were looking for reasons not to play rather than looking for reasons to play. Yeah, and you can't have that. And I don't think Jim Harbaugh understands that because it's not in his DNA. And I think that was kind of a detriment to some of those teams. You don't have that on this team. You've got guys that are itching to get back in the game, and Harbaugh has said as much. And McNamara is at the top of that list. This is a guy who has taken some shots. Everybody says, oh, what a great number. He's only been sacked 3 times this year. Well, part of that is because of his willingness to stand in the pocket and take those hits and deliver balls, maybe throw balls away, knowing that he's going to get hit, and it might not look pretty. His numbers aren't great because of it, but that guy is a warrior, and you're going to see him out there on Saturday. Hopefully they do a better job protecting him. I thought that the offensive line was leaky against Indiana. Those guys need to be better up front, knowing that their quarterback is going through so much and has been in pain for the last few weeks.
What makes me nervous, I don't think I'm alone, is when JJ comes into the game at times. I mean, he had some beautiful throws last week through that interception. But Jim says he's going to play, so that's the way it's going to be. But doesn't it make you a little bit nervous with this stretch we have coming up, inserting him in some at big points in the game?
Yeah, the state game. I said that, you don't want your true freshman out there in the waning moments of that game. And I know that McNamara was banged up, but if he could have been out there, he should have been, because we saw the big mistake being made. He had a couple of fumbles, and he happened to lose one. Now, a lot of people said that was on Blake Corum. At the same time, those things are going to happen when you have a true freshman in the game, especially when they go back to their high school tendencies, which is what McCarthy's done the last couple of weeks, running around, throwing back across his body, keeping plays alive. You can't do that. And that's the high school hairy stuff that's going to get you in trouble. And one of the reasons this Michigan team has played so well this year is because of ball protection and ball security, and because McNamara has done such a great job with that. So you hope they pick their spots with McCarthy. He didn't get in until late in the game, or late in the first half last week, and I was good with that. I think McCarthy is the future of the program. I've said that many times. I don't think the future is now, though. I think you stick with McNamara and take maybe bring in McCarthy for a play here, a play there, but to me, this is Cade McNamara's team, and they got to let him go.
Well, you were mentioning just a minute ago what a warrior Cade McNamara is, playing bunged up, and you've got to figure Hassan Haskins is he might not be hurt, but he has taken a lot of hits over the course of the season. But where would we be without this guy? Is he just not incredible, or what?
Yeah, what a back. I compared him to B.J. Askew, a guy who never really got his due here in the early 2000s. I thought, that guy was a 5-year pro. Mm-hmm. And that's what people don't understand. He might not have been the sexiest back Michigan's ever had, but he was more athletic than given credit for. A hard runner, a great blocker, and that's what Haskins is. Moves the chains, and a great teammate. And those are the guys that you win with. He might not have the elite speed. And it's amazing. At the beginning of the year, everybody's like, it'll be okay when Haskins leaves this year if he goes to pro, because we got Donovan Edwards, and so on and so forth. And I'm like, I don't think people understand how much goes into playing the running back position other than the breakaway speed. A lot of people don't anyway. And this kid, you saw some of his blocks and pass protection that were just bone crushing. He is everything that you need to win titles. Granted, he doesn't have the breakaway speed, but he's got everything else. And he's going to probably get 30 carries on Saturday. We'll see if Corum goes, but Haskins is the guy you want out there as the bell cow, and just a winner. I really hope he comes back next year, Mike. I'd love to see it. I know he was talking at the beginning of the year. We'll see what happens, but if some booster out there or something can offer him some NIL money, mm-hmm. which is legal now, get him back here, I think that would be huge for next year's team.
Oh, I don't think anyone would argue that point. Getting back to the offensive line play for just a minute, Chris, that you were mentioning, they were not really crisp, allowed 2 sacks. And it seemed like they had trouble handling, a lot of the movement from that really depleted Indiana defense, didn't they?
They did. Some of the twists again. Mm-hmm. They aren't passing them off, and these are issues. Our Doug Skeen is our analyst. He played offensive line here in the early 90s, and he said, these are things at this point in the season where you should have these down now, and this can't happen where you have guys coming through untouched. And whether it's on the quarterback, knowing that a guy's coming through untouched and calling a hot route or something like that, or guys just not picking up their responsibilities up front, it's been a problem. And it needs to get better, because Penn State's got a solid pass rush. That Ohio State has been scheming for this offensive line all year, because that's what they do. And I don't think they'll have any problem against Maryland. But at the same time, all it takes is one shot on your quarterback who's been gimpy anyway, and then you're in trouble. So they need to be better. And you would love to see them have a really good, clean game on Saturday, because I think that's going to be one of the keys. Still impressed with the run blocking and the way they're mixing things up between the zone schemes and the gap schemes and the down blocking and everything else. But when it comes to pass blocking, these guys just need to be a little bit better.
Well, the defense was outstanding against IU, and it was really nice to see Mike McDonald use some different packages, not requiring as much substitution. Using Michael Barrett was one of the different looks, and boy, did he come up big, Chris.
He did, and they're going to need him. Now, there were a couple times he was out of position, but they needed something to compensate for those substitution packages that they got caught in at Michigan State, where they were trying to run guys in when they shouldn't have been. Cost them 2 scores, Mike, and that was really the difference in the game. That can't happen. You can't gift touchdowns in a game like that. So one of the reasons that they mixed it up, and was one of the ways they did, was by changing up personnel. A guy like Barrett we've seen him play the Viper, which is a safety and linebacker combination type of position in the past, and he's proven that he can do that. So he's going to probably see more playing time because of it, rather than substituting and trying to run guys in and out. So, and he's a veteran, so he's played a lot of football, and they're going to need him because they still need some more depth at the linebacker position too. So, liked that, and I like the fact that McDonald learns from his mistakes. He's a first-time coordinator, and people don't really think about that, but these guys are learning still when they've never done it. As good as you might be, when you get into in the heat of battle, at times there are things that you're going to learn. But he doesn't seem to make the same mistake twice, which is great. I think that bodes well here going down the stretch.
We'll be in Happy Valley Saturday. It's a noon kick with the Nittany Lions. They, of course, beat Maryland 31-14 last Saturday. They might not be a great team, Chris, but they recruit well. They're very talented, and they are dangerous at home, aren't they?
They are. Yeah, that's a tough place to play. I'm glad it's not a whiteout at night, but it will be a stripe out, and there'll be a lot of white in the stands. They're I guess they're serving pancakes to get the students there early, so they have their advantage. But, one thing about it is it's a great college football atmosphere. It's always fun to go there, and Harbaugh mentioned that on Monday. He said, you have to pretend that they're cheering for you, essentially. It's one of the louder venues in the Big Ten, and they still have some things to play for. They might be out of the hunt, but there's a lot of pride in that program. So they can't run the ball, though, and that's big. Can't let Sean Clifford get out and run, and if they can do a good job on Dotson, I really like their chances here. I think they've got enough of a running game that they can control the game. And again, if they don't give up the big plays, I think Dotson had 200 and something yards against Maryland. I mean, the guy's outstanding. But they struggled in that game. They really did. They didn't pull away until the fourth quarter. I know that each week is different, but it's not like Penn State is wowing people with their offense. So this is a game, in my opinion, that Michigan can control on the ground. I think I'm going to pick them to win up there, which I usually don't on the road. But I think this team's different, Mike. I think they've got a good chance to go in there, and I think they're motivated to get to that last game with Ohio State with everything on the line.
One of the things, though, with Penn State, that every time I've seen them this year, Chris, I thought, wow, I've never seen Penn State throw the ball as much as they have every time that I see them. Mm-hmm. And then you look at the statistics. This is the first Penn State team, if it carries through the remaining 3 games, that has not had one running back run for over 100 yards. And, you think, well, we'd like to make them a little one-dimensional, but they've sort of done that to themselves. They really cannot run the football well.
They can't. And when you are one-dimensional, that puts you behind the 8 ball, especially when you've got a couple of ends like David Ojabo and Aiden Hutchinson, right, getting to the quarterback. And that bodes well, I think, for Michigan, because Clifford gets antsy. We were talking to some Penn State insiders today. You get a flash in front of his face a little bit, and he gets antsy. As you can expect, the guy's been banged up. He doesn't want to get hit. And when that happens, I think he threw 2 picks recently. And there are times when he makes bad decisions when you get to him. So I like that. You can't, though. You've got to, they should have done a better job against Kenneth Walker at Michigan State, let him out for 5 touchdowns. They've got to maintain their gap integrity and not sleep on that, because I don't think that Penn State's going to completely abandon the running game. I think they're going to see what they can get. And every time, I remember back going up there several years, they always seem to break one, Mike, and I can't let that happen on Saturday. So, but make them one-dimensional, get to the quarterback. I think this defense is going to come up big. You have to keep them, I think, under 21, 23 points to win this game. I think they have a chance to do that.
Well, final question for you, Chris, before we let you get away. After Saturday's game, I was thinking, hey, we're 8-1. Not many before the season thought that's where we would be in November, so of course your expectations change. There's going to be a ton of pressure on Michigan this week to win a big road game. That's all we've heard about in the last few days, and it's against a ranked opponent. It's November. Winning this game, however we get it done, would be huge for Jim Harbaugh and the program mentally, wouldn't it?
Without a doubt. And this is, they put everything into that Michigan State game. And again, probably deserved a better fate, but made too many mistakes. But this is when you need to play your best football, and you need to be able to overcome the officiating calls or anything like that. I would like to see Michigan come out and play a clean game. And then whatever happens, happens, right? No fumbles, no big mental mistakes where you're giving up uncovered touchdowns, which we saw the last time they went up to Penn State. Things like that. Play a good, clean game and show us that it's going to be different. That, okay, this is when we play our best football. This is when we're our toughest mentally. I think a lot of people would be impressed with that. I'm not taking anything away from the games at Wisconsin and Nebraska they won, because those are good road wins. But this would be a great road win, in my opinion, even though Penn State's only, 21st in the country or whatever they are, because this is, like you said, a ranked team in a really, really tough venue with something on the line. And they need to prove that this team is different. They've been talking about it, saying they're different. Let's see it, guys. Go out there and get a W.
Absolutely great opportunity. We'll see what happens at noon on Saturday. Here with us on our Game Day segment this week has been Chris Balas from thewolverine.com. Chris, as you know, always a pleasure having you on the show, and we look forward to that next visit.
No, it's my pleasure, Mike. Thanks for having me.
On Quick Hits today, at Jim's Monday presser, he had no injury updates. My guess is we probably won't get any information this week. We'll see who is ready to go on Saturday in Happy Valley at kickoff. Jim was asked at the presser if he had heard from Big Ten officials regarding some questionable calls and video reviews in the Michigan State game last week. He said he had heard, and they said there were mistakes made. He really did not go into it much, though. The bottom line this week is everything Michigan needs to finish big is there for the taking. Sure, we are a banged-up group, there's no doubt about it, but so is Penn State. This is another opportunity to go on the road in a hostile environment against a ranked team and come home with a win. That's what good teams do, even when they have key players out. On Thursday's Visitors Edition, we'll be joined by Steve Jones. He's the radio play-by-play voice of Penn State football, so make sure you tune in for his thoughts on this week's big game. That's it for now. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Have a great Wolverine week, everyone, and make sure you join us again on Thursday. Until then, take care, and as always, go blue. Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!